I mean, it's so true. And there's so many different articles that pop up all the time, and you see them more and more about like, all the research that's been carried out about like they're now relating loneliness, the effects of chronic loneliness, where someone is experiencing it for prolonged periods of time, and it's actually affecting physiological effects in their body, where it's like, you know, they're comparing it to like if you smoke 15 cigarettes a day and obesity, but there's so much on it. Like you can just literally type in loneliness and health, and there's just article after article on the research on that. Because I was kind of like, how do they know that? Like, how can they actually like identify that? And so there's a professor, he's passed away now, called John Cacioppo. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but I've watched loads of his TED Talks.
Okay.
He's done so many different types of research and talks and books on loneliness, and he's just an incredible, I'm always quoting him in my emails and stuff like that, but he simplifies it down in a way, like he kind of like, so the analogy he uses, I suppose you call it an analogy, where he talks about how loneliness is like, you know, it's like a trigger. So it's not an illness. You're not unwell if you're lonely. The same way you're not unwell if you're hungry. Yeah. But you are unwell if you're in starvation. And so your hunger pains is your body going, okay, you're hungry, you need to sort this need out, because if you don't, it's going to lead to worse things. He said that loneliness is the same idea. It's a trigger within your social needs to say you're not fulfilling your social needs, whatever they may be. You need to sort this out, because this can lead to further things. And it could be, you know, towards your mental health, towards your physical health. And I found really interesting. I was like, that makes so much sense. He's like, it's your body telling you. So then I looked into it again. It goes back to like, you know, when we were hunter-gatherers. They go back to that point of like, we're parts of communities. So the idea is that like, you know, say we're hunting together, right? The hunting communities, and I turn around, you're gone. And I'm like, okay, right, I'm on my own. I'm more susceptible to predators. I'm more vulnerable to being attacked. If I have to sleep, I'm not going to sleep properly because I'm nervous. And what happens in your body is your body prepares itself for an external injury. So that's why your body focuses. So that's why all your your immune system is focusing on the external. Therefore, in the internal, you can develop like different illnesses and inflammation and stuff like that can impact your recovery. It's really interesting. There's so much, and I'm not like a scientist or a doctor, so I would definitely recommend looking this up. But you can go down so many rabbit holes. But when he brings it down really simply, you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense. So, like they say that people who suffer maybe a stroke will recover a lot longer, and there's just different people can develop different illnesses quicker. But that makes sense, that kind of fight or flight, your body's in a state of vigilance. And they relate that back now to today's present time, that if someone is in periods of like prolonged loneliness, where it's actually like affecting, like they're anxious and they're feeling this need that's not being fulfilled, that state of vigilance is still there. So people aren't sleeping properly. People are, you know, more kind of cautious about like, again, there's a lot of articles about people who experience loneliness see the world a lot more hostile. It's just really, really interesting that there's a fear as well. And so from that respect, you're like, okay, so your body's kind of in a state of vigilance. That's how it impacts your health. So again, like it's interesting to go into actually dive into where they come up with these, like, you know, outcomes are like, oh, it can affect you in that way or this way. So yeah, it's just really, but then you go back to like, we need it. Yeah, so we need it. You know, it's not about like, and you know, it's not, you know, my social needs could be different to yours, could be different to the person down the road. It's a very subjective, there's like, I was going to word this kind of term wrong. So it's like, it's a subjective perception of a lack of connection. So it kind of goes back to like, you know, you aren't connecting with the people in the room. So you could be in a room full of people and feel really lonely. You could be on your own and feel totally fulfilled. So it's about not feeling like anyone can relate or connect with you. It's my understanding of it now. Obviously people have their own perceptions of it and their own understandings of the definitions of it, but like it is a need. It's like it's on like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need it as human beings, you know. So yeah, and I think yes, it's I can go on for so long. It's just a rabbit hole as you go down, you know. But it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, I want to get back on this, right? But just before, I have to comment on your friend, the befriend woman.
Oh yeah. Sorry, tangent.
And you were saying how she has neighbours and people that she would say hi to. And so recently, my girlfriend came over from Italy, and she was really like uncomfortable with how the average Irish interaction is kind of 2 or 3 unanswered questions.
Okay,
my response to you asking me how I am is, how's it going? I don't expect you to tell me how's it going.
Yeah.
I'm more just waiting for you to say something else, and then we can get on with it. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, like, not to toot the podcast's own horn, but when we ask, like, how are you? Like, what's the crack? It's like, we want to know. Like, it not not like when you're in Dublin and you walk by someone and you say, oh, what's the crack?
You say it in passing, don't you? You don't give them a time to answer.
That blew her mind.
Wow.
She was like, he's gone. And he asked me how I was.
You think of it that way, yeah, it is really bizarre, but it's so normal.
Like, what is that really saying? Like, a person who's asked you how you are is walking away without you replying.
It's so true. You go, I'm having a really crap day.
Yeah. He doesn't care.
He's gone.
He didn't want the answer.
His headphones are on. He's not even listening. Like, that's really funny. Wow. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, you don't think of those things. They're so normal to us, aren't they?
To the point now, right, where I think a lot of Irish people have difficulty answering the question.
I think so too. I even when you asked me at the crack at the start, I was like, it's good. Yeah, it's great.
Usually I'm bombarded with another question by now.
Yeah. I can divert it now. Yeah. It is. That is, it's funny that from her perspective, of course, because it's like, why are you guys asking each other so many questions? I'd said that before about, like, you know, I just it's the thing I talk a while ago about, like, talking about, like, you know, people who are sleeping out, and, you know, just talking about people kind of including them in society, and just about people who are, like, rough sleeping out in the city. And one of the things I kind of said was, you know, if you want to stop and engage with an individual who's homeless, or, you know, they're sleeping out and you're kind of concerned about them, make sure you have the time to listen to the answer if you ask how you are. And that was something I kind of said, because I've been guilty of it. Like, we all are. Like, that thing of, like, hey, how are you? I'm rushing out the door out to work.
And then you say, well, I asked him how he was.
Yeah, exactly. I checked in. But I remember saying that about, like, I was coming up to Christmas, and a friend of mine was kind of raising awareness, and we were doing some things for the homeless charities, and it was just talking about, like, including people who sleep out, like, looking at them as you walk by. And another important thing is, like, looking at someone to say, no, I don't have any change, sorry, just acknowledge somebody. But I also, and I had a few friends who wanted to get involved in, like, volunteering and stuff like that, and I always said, like, you know, that thing, we're so used to saying, hey, how are you, and not really wanting to, or caring, or noticing that we have asked. But when you ask an individual who hasn't spoken to someone all day, they might really want to tell you. Yeah. So it's a different thing. I mean, I know, like, if I met you in the street and you went, hey, what's the crack? I wouldn't think that you actually want me to stop and answer, because I'm so used to that.
Yeah.
But in that circumstance, you're talking to someone who maybe you're aware that you want to link in with, that maybe they haven't spoken to someone all day. It's a different kind of, we have to kind of change up how we use that question, I suppose. You know?
Alright, it's like, I don't know if we need to change the tone or the pace of it or something, where you just go, how are you? Yeah. I want this response.
I want to know. I actually am interested. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's actually really funny. There's someone from the outside looking in. It's cool, isn't it? It's like a nice perspective, because when you're just in it, it's you're lost. Yeah, you're just so used to it. Okay, so I wanted to. So it was a cool definition that you gave of loneliness, where it was like a subjective I always get this wrong. Subjective perception of a lack of connection. Okay, I'm sure there's an easier way to say that. It doesn't really roll off the tongue, but yeah, it's how you perceive your connections with people at that time of your life, or that thing you're going through. I love that. Like, this resonates with me so much, because particularly recently, I would say, like, the last 12-18 months, the loneliness I felt is really in company, like, as in with people. Yeah. And some of my best times have been when I'm alone. Yeah.